Hello and welcome to another episode of Killer Reviews. Today we'll be talking about the book Overruled, edited by Hank Davis and Christopher Ruocchio. I'm pretty terrible with names if you haven't gotten that already. This is actually my second time trying to record this. I actually recorded a whole 10-minute video and I found out that my camera did not record it. It recorded 3 seconds and no audio. It recorded the first 3 seconds and that's it, so I had to redo this. But this is a book, it's a series of collection of short stories, all dealing with lawyers, courtrooms, and the law, made by various authors, including Larry Niven, Tom Kidd, Robert Heinlein, Arthur C. Clarke, and Larry Correia. Yeah, like I said, if I mispronounce any of these guys, especially if any of these authors or authors' families see this and get angry because I mispronounce it, I'm very sorry. I'm really terrible with names. So I thought this was an excellent book, and looking at the cover, this is I bought this just for the cover, because ignore the little tear right there. That was actually like that when I bought it. So I definitely love the cover. It starts off basically this guy, he's in a spacesuit, and if he's guilty, it kills him. I love the fact that his lawyer and the judge are both wearing wigs, and of course that's the robot's pet right there. That's basically from the first story from Tom Kidd. So I can't go over all the stories because it'll take way too long, and the fact that I already wasted 10 minutes trying to figure out what's wrong with my camera. When I took a second video, it didn't pick up any audio. I guess I fixed it for now. But the first one is basically The Sketcher by Tom Kidd, and is after kind of like a misunderstanding, an artist or a sketcher is basically forced to go to trial to plead for his life that he is not guilty. The whole story is absolutely hilarious, and it was enjoyable. I actually laughed out loud many times because it's just a very ridiculous and funny story. However, after the trial has ended, it seemed to drag on a little bit, and it just becomes a little unbelievable for a sci-fi story. Yeah, for a sci-fi story, it ended up being a little unbelievable, but it's still a very great first story. The second one is Jerry Was a Man. It's basically a rich couple see a disabled intelligent ape, which are used for labor. He's about to be put to death because the company sees him as property. So they try and fight, showing him that he's in fact sentient. And it reminds me of an episode of Star Trek where Data's trying to prove that he's sentient and should have rights. The next great story I'm just going through all the best stories, is Paradox and the Greenblatt Attorneys at Law. It's an interesting story about a man who goes back in time to kill off the man who he claims ruined his family. And he basically creates kind of like a paradox, so he's put the trial for it, and it did have a very nice, surprising ending, which was kind of cool. Larry Niven's story isn't the best short story in here, but I just like to explain it. It's still interesting. There is no bad story in this. The worst, at worst, is the average one, and Larry's is above average. But it's basically a man being put to death so his organs can be harvested for crimes not told until the end, which was interesting, to say the least. The next one is one of my favorite. Sulking Permit. It's basically a town based on outer rim world or something. Basically, it's another world and they have no crime because everyone knows each other. And this one guy is basically drafted to be a criminal. The whole story is pretty hilarious because he has to go around stealing things and he's kind of like treated like a celebrity. Like he's like going in a market and people are like following around like, what's he going to steal? What's he going to steal? And when he ends up stealing like some tools late at night, the guy comes back the next morning asking for his tool, wanting to borrow his tool so he can work that day. And he's like, yeah, sure, just bring him back. He's like, yeah, you stole him legally. I'll bring him back. And that he has to go up his game because he was told that he has to kill someone. And there has to be a reason for it. And the whole story is just hilarious. It's great. Another one is the Larry Correa one, which is actually called Lawyer Fight. And that one's actually a pretty nice action. It's based on the Monster Hunter International universe, which I reviewed the first book earlier this year, and basically a monster fighting lawyer goes into like a law building to fight off like an undead creature. It's short, it's sweet, and it's entertaining. And the last one I want to talk about is To See the Invisible Man by Robert Silverberg. This one is definitely probably one of the more tragic ones. It's a guy who, after he commits a crime, he is sentenced to be invisible. What that means is no one is allowed to interact with him. Like, they can see him, they can't interact with him at all. Like, they'll push by him when he's on the street. When he talks to someone, they'll just ignore him. To the point where even if he talks to someone, they go, oh yeah, I can help. Oh, I'll help you. And then they realize that he's invisible and they stop interacting with him at all. At first he sees like some advantages because he can go places where he's not allowed and no one will ever stop him. But after a while he realizes that doctors won't help him if he's sick. He also gets very lonely. It's definitely a very tragic thing. And it's very sad because if he interacts with them at all, because they always have like something like Big Brother hanging around, they'll immediately identify the person, and also make him invisible. So it's definitely a sad but very good story. So what would I give this entire book overall? Easy 9.5, one of the best books I've read so far. And even the worst stories is just average and somewhat forgettable, but no, there was absolutely no bad story to it, which is what I loved. So if you ever see this book, pick it, and you like sci-fi short stories or sci-fi in general, pick it up. I highly recommend it. So until next time, this is Killer Ant.